Leader Lakes.
Documents reported in the Globe and Mail illustrate how the communist dictatorship in Beijing was operating an interference in campaign in Canada, and it had two aims. One was to elect a Liberal government, and the other was to defeat certain Conservative candidates. Now, Canadians deserve answers, and we know that the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, was briefed on this very situation. So will the Prime Minister allow Katie Telford to testify at committee, or will the Liberals continue for a fourth day of their cover-up filibuster?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the supposition that a foreign government's objective is to elect a political party is a ridiculous notion. The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that the objective of foreign interference is to destroy our democracy. It is a threat to every single member in this House, and the idea that every single member in this House is not united in repelling that threat is preposterous.
Honorable Député de Charbot-Saint-Charles.
The Honourable Member for Charbot-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister continues to refuse to answer our questions on the foreign interference crisis that is shaking this country. But the RCMP is inquiring actively in the police stations that are governed by Beijing and Ms. Xi Jinping. So will the Prime Minister stop fiddling around with this serious issue and inquire into Beijing's interference in Canada? The Minister for Interparliamentary Affairs. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows full well that the Prime Minister just answered a series of questions on that very specific question. He also was here yesterday and answered over 40 questions. And you remember there was a bit of a technical problem, a bit of a delay, but the Prime Minister was here to answer the very question my colleague just asked. And Mr. Speaker, with regard to the alleged police stations, he said that the RCMP has ended those in Canada. The member for Charbot-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, all we know about the Prime Minister's answers is that the answers don't tell us anything. All he continues to say is that he will name a special rapporteur, and then he will ask a parliamentary committee that can't speak out to conduct the inquiry. So what are we going to learn from that committee? Nothing at all, Mr. Speaker. But all we want to know is whether the Prime Minister will accept to have an independent inquiry that will be led by someone that will be approved by all parties and the Liberals as well, so that we can look into Beijing's foreign interference in Canada. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, it is a challenge. Foreign interference is a challenge, and that is why we created the Parliamentary Committee on Intelligence and Public Safety. We did it with the opposition parties. The committee is one that has already made recommendations, some of which, inaudible to the interpreter, I think there was a slight problem with the microphones that weren't working. Could I ask the member? So, yes, we're having a microphone problem. So I would ask the minister to begin his answer again, because we didn't hear the whole thing. So, yes, please start again. So, yes, we're going to fix that technology. So I agree. Or I share my colleagues' concerns, and that's why we created the Parliamentary Committee on Intelligence and National Security, because we wanted to cooperate with the opposition parties, and we will build on all of the concrete measures that we've already taken in that regard. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, there are 2 Chinese police stations in Quebec, over 10 ridings where China might have intervened to influence the election, and reports from CSIS that have been ignored. The Prime Minister has done nothing right in this issue, and yet he wants to act alone, and he wants to act in secret as though he has something to hide. So who will stand up within the government to talk to the Prime Minister to explain that it takes a commissioner that should be appointed for an independent public inquiry? So who among the Liberals will dare to speak to the Prime Minister? The Honourable Member of Public Safety. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With all the respect that my colleague is due, the government is working with the parliamentary committee and with NSIRA and the OSSN. The government will work with the special rapporteur, and when that rapporteur makes recommendations, the government will follow those recommendations. There is a lot of cooperation